So we come to the National Convention, which started in 1792, 21st of September to be more precise, and it abolished the monarchy. France was declared a republic. As we know, this didn't last a terribly long time in the grand scheme of things because the empire comes along, the crown on his head himself. We'll get to that fairly shortly. So the Girondists, they wanted the king to be imprisoned only. The Jacobins, we know what happened to Louis. That's not a great mystery, I'm hoping. What was new to me, I mean, I didn't quite know this. The convention accused the king after a whole lot of debate, and they won by one vote. And if you remember, I'm sure this is entirely unrelated, but if you remember back to when we were talking about Charles of England and before the start of the interregnum, that was one vote as well. I just thought that was an interesting parallel. No relation at all, but I just thought I'd note that. They challenge us, we throw them the head of a king, says Detine. So the sans-culottes and Jacobins, they branded the Girondists as counter-revolutionaries, meaning they were against the revolution. They were enemies of the revolution. They ousted them from the national, even modern day United States and Europe. If we only, one point of view is a little dangerous, more than a little dangerous. And the National Convention, they get to work. They pass the law of general maximum, which limited the price of grain. Hoarders would be rooted out and punished. Again, you just have to remember, I mean, this is just a period of great turmoil in France. The old order had broken down. There was going to be looters. There was going to be a certain amount of anarchy and lawlessness, and it's just the way it was. The army was brought in, just not expressing enthusiastic support for the Republic could be placed under arrest. So not enough to be quiet. Yeah, the head of the king, that's great. Or you risk arrest. So the law of general maximum, the law of suspects. I'd probably be asking you about this on the final, just an FYI. So European liberals initially, they supported the revolution. They cheered the fall of the old regime. Again, remember the time period. We're in the Enlightenment. I go back to the kind of unofficial motto of the revolution: liberty, equality, fraternity, brotherhood. Of course, they would like it, the liberals. So Edmund Burke, who was a conservative English politician, at the time they had completely pulled down to the ground of their monarchy, their church, their nobility, their law, their revenue, their army, their navy, their commerce, their arts, and their manufactures, the result of the excesses of an irrational, unprincipled, prescribing, confiscating, plundering, ferocious, bloody, and tyrannical democracy. So says Edmund Burke. The moderates thought that hard to kill. As I think I mentioned in class, when the late Queen Elizabeth II was being set to be coronated, I don't know who in Britain, but there was a poll done, and 1 out of 3 Britons believed that God chose her to be who she was. So 33%, she came to the throne in 1953, 33% of the country thought that she had been chosen by God. Louis XVI same thing. Not divine right, but there was a divinity. God and the monarchy weren't so separated. So it is entirely understandable that a significant amount of the French population would take issue with killing a king, or a queen, or any royal for that matter. God's representatives on earth. Not divine right like the Stuarts of Scotland and later Great Britain, but it's the idea. Ideas, if you remember nothing else, ideas are just a hard thing to kill. Once you get an idea into someone's head, it's impossible, nearly impossible to remove it. So in 1793, the spring, England, Spain, the Netherlands, and Sardinia joined Austria and Prussia to form the first coalition. And as I said, there are more than a few coalitions that form to fight France and later Napoleon. And just think of it as everybody against France. So coalition forces, as well as internal conflict, because if you think France was settled, that the National Convention, that was it. Nope. So Robespierre leads the committee. He takes almost dictatorial power and carries out the reign of terror. As I said, a government committee usually, in my experience, it does the opposite of what it's called. So Robespierre says, liberty cannot be served until criminals lose their heads. Terror is nothing other than justice, prompt, severe, inflexible. So he hoped to create a public republic of virtue, and he executes the Queen, Marie Antoinette, all of his chief rivals. That's a great way to secure your own power, and thousands of enemies of the revolution as he saw it. 300,000 were arrested. 16 to 50,000 were executed. The guillotine got a lot of use. The death of Marie Antoinette is what is being displayed here. The guillotine, invented by Dr. Guillotine. Joseph Guillotine proposed the use of a mechanical device to carry out the death penalty. It was considered a humane death. And I don't particularly think so. As I think, again, we've discussed in class, after they would cut the head off, you're still aware of what's going on for a few moments at least. There were reports in history, when it used to be the axe and the guillotine of heads being held up and still blinking. I can't imagine that. Hopefully my head will never be lopped off, but I can't imagine how terrifying that must be, if that is in fact the case. So 16,594 executions by guillotine, 2,639 in Paris alone. And never heads enough. Robespierre meets a bad end. So there's a little justice there. In 1793, the committee issued the Levée en masse, which is basically conscription of a sort. Males aged 18 to 40 had to serve in the French army. From this moment, until such time as its enemies shall have been driven from the soil of the Republic, all Frenchmen are in permanent requisition for the services of the armies. The young men shall fight, the married men shall forge arms and transport provisions, the women shall make tents and clothes and shall serve in the hospitals, the The children shall turn old lint into linen. The old men shall betake themselves to the public squares in order to arouse the courage of the warriors and preach hatred of kings and the unity of the republic. So the levee en masse was the first example of the complete mobilization of the country for war. So with motivated troops and with very talented young officers such as Napoleon Bonaparte, the French defeated the First Coalition's professional armies, to my mind, very easily. And the Committee on How to Terrorize the Public successfully crushed dissent. Internally, they defeated the First Coalition. The reign of terror still continued.